created by veterans of both sides who came together and realized the importance of documenting the important story that happened on the hills and valleys surrounding Chattanooga and Chickamauga. We are blessed with over 9 units of that park around Chattanooga and record attendance again as people enjoy not only the beauty of our park, but the history of our country that is right here in our community. And third, and this feature this evening, the Medal of Honor Museum, an important new asset to our community on the riverfront. Although a part of Chattanooga for many years, it was recently memorized by a new building and recreating the stories that are told of our Medal of Honor winners. That story started here in Chattanooga and is tied directly to Chickamauga-Chattanooga National Military Park. So without any further ado, I will let Tricia introduce our speaker, but please enjoy the evening and the rest of our lecture series. We have 2 more wonderful programs coming up, one in October on Julius Rosenwald. If you don't know him, it is a wonderful story of philanthropy and African education and his commitment as one of the co-founders of Sears Roebuck and what he did in the early 1900s for African-American education across the South. And third, we will talk about transportation in November during the Trail of Tears period. Wonderful programs, diversity of subject matter, and I know you'll enjoy it. So enjoy the evening and welcome.
Thank you, Greg. It's been a tremendous series, and we're really excited that the 16th year is kicking off and with this amazing program. It's my pleasure to introduce Keith Hardison, Executive Director of the Charles H. Coolidge National Medal of Honor Heritage Center. With more than 36 years of experience in leading museums, historic sites, and historical agencies, Keith supervised the design and construction of the Jefferson Davis Presidential Library and Museum and served 2 terms on the Mississippi Civil War Battlefields Commission in the 1990s. He supervised the design and construction of the Capitol Park Branch, Louisiana State Museum in 2000 through 2006. Keith directed all aspects of the operation of the North Carolina Division of State Historic Sites and Properties, a statewide system of 23 historic sites encompassing 250 structures on 3,300 acres from 2006 to 2018. Keith now resides in his favorite vacation spot as a child, Chattanooga, Tennessee. His loves include his wife of more than 20 years, Angela, and their dog. Keith enjoys whitewater rafting, Tennessee football, go Vols, travel, and doo-wop music. Please welcome Keith.
Thank you, Tricia. It's good to be here with each and every one of you. I want to thank Tricia for her invitation to participate in this lecture series. I've been to previous lectures and enjoyed them, so it's quite the honor to be asked to speak as a part of this series. I'm also thankful for Greg Vital and his continuing support of this lecture series. And Greg did not mention, but he is a member of the National Advisory Board of the National Medal of Honor Heritage Center. Also, we have Herbert Thornberry over here and Anthony Hodges, who are also board members for our institution, and all 3 have given great service. So I appreciate them being here and appreciate each and every one of you being here. Now, as I was thinking about this, appearing before a large audience, both virtually and in person in this such a big auditorium, I was reminded of the story of the old preacher. There was a preacher who had developed his Sunday sermon, and he had built it around one particular scripture which he had memorized, or so he thought. As he started off on his presentation, he stepped forward, raised his hand very dramatically, and said, "I." And the rest of the scripture just went out of his mind, and he stood there for a minute, but like most good preachers, you can back off and preach around that thing for a while. He did that, then this time he knew it. And so he stepped forward again very dramatically, and he said, "Behold, I," and his mind failed him a second time. Very frustrated, he preached for a few minutes, and this time he knew it. And so he stepped forward with all his might, and he said, "Behold, I come." And when he did that, his foot got tangled in the microphone cord there, by the pulpit, and he did a somersault into the front pew, into the lap of one of the dear sisters of the congregation. He was horribly embarrassed and turned 3 shades of red, and he apologized profusely. And the little lady looked up at him and said, "Preacher, no reason to apologize. You warned me 3 times you was a-coming." Well, y'all were warned that I was coming, and you came anyway, so I'm very grateful for that. The topic for this evening is Character-Driven History, Chattanooga and the Charles H. Coolidge National Medal of Honor Heritage Center. The Heritage Center is new, but it's not new. The organization was established in 1987 in this community as a general military organization, and it was to have a space dedicated to Alvin York. It originally was located in the 2nd floor of the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Auditorium, just a few blocks from here. It then moved to various locations within the city of Chattanooga, landing in Northgate Mall, where it stayed for about 16 years. Was volunteer-led pretty much, and served a number of people, several thousand a year. But in 2017, the decision was made with additional new board leadership that it was time to go large or go home and refocus on Chattanooga's heritage with the Medal of Honor. So with that in mind, it relocated into the old Chattanooga Visitor Center in February 2020. The institution opened on the 22nd of February with 1,200 people, including 12 Medal of Honor recipients present. Now, of course, along came a little thing called COVID, so we closed 3 weeks later so that we could open again 2 months later and build back the momentum. Well, what is our business, our stock and trade? And I like to tell folks that Chattanooga's made so much history, we've had to export it. And that is certainly true. Our mission is to memorialize the history of our nation's highest military award for valor, starting with the first medals in 1863 to the present time, and to educate the next generation of Americans about the 6 character traits associated with the gallantry of Medal of Honor recipients. And that is our stock in trade. That is where the character comes from in this character-driven history. Now, the Medal of Honor has been around a long time. It was authorized in 1861, or at least the Navy Marine version of it was, and the first Medal of Honor was awarded in 1863. After that time, the medals have evolved a great deal. And you see just a few of them: the original Navy and the Army, the 1896 version of the Army, the 1904 version of the Army after Chattanooga's George Gillespie got it changed, the Navy in 1913, and what is probably my favorite is the least known, and that is the Navy Tiffany Cross. And yes, it was made by Tiffany. The recipient character traits that we talked about. Medal of Honor recipients, the Medal of Honor Society, which are the living recipients, of which there are now 66, only 66, I might add, several decades ago determined that they were going to videotape interviews so that every Medal of Honor recipient alive could tell their stories. They did, and a group of Princeton scholars was commissioned to develop an educational program based on those interviews. They found 6 characteristics common to all Medal of Honor recipients. They are patriotism, citizenship, courage, integrity, sacrifice, and commitment. Those are the basis of our exhibits. Those are the basis of our programs. Those are the basis of our publications and promotions, is the character of these men and women. It's a little like, in terms of our emphasis on these character traits, it's a little like what one preacher told me is how he did effective preaching. And he said, I tell them what I'm going to tell them. Then I tell them, and then I tell them what I told them. So you're going to get these characteristics in a lot of ways when you come to our facility. Well, how do we do this? I tell folks the Medal of Honor Heritage Center is not your grandpa's museum, and it's not for these very reasons. Our scope is primarily the 52 medals, let that sink in. During the Civil War in 1862 and 1863, in the greater Chattanooga area, there were 52 medal actions, or actions for which 52 medals were awarded in a 24-month period in the greater Chattanooga area. That's almost unheard of. And so they're the first medals. Chattanooga, and they include the first medals include, as you might think, the first issued medals, making Chattanooga the birthplace of the Medal of Honor, which I allege is Chattanooga's best kept and least promoted secret. We're trying to change that. So we talk about the first medals, and then we focus secondarily on medals awarded to Tennesseans in all conflicts, starting with the Civil War on up through the War on Terror. Our philosophy is twofold. Number one, it is immersive and interactive. Some of you may remember, or at least have heard of, the old television program, You Were There, in which everyday people from the current age were propelled somehow back into great moments in history, and they were there to witness and participate in that. We do the same thing. You keep walking into people doing their duty on the battlefield in the Medal of Honor Heritage Center. So it's immersive, it's interactive, and again, here I go. I'm telling you what I'm telling you. Everything is based on those 6 character traits, literally everything. Well, as good historians do, we like to start at the beginning, and incidentally, you know how many historians, and I can say this because I am one, you know how many historians it takes to change a light bulb, don't you? It takes 10, one to change the bulb, the other 9 to comment on how nice the old one looks. That's what we do, that's what I do. So we're starting at the beginning. The very first medals were issued as a result of the Andrews Raid. The Andrews Raid, of course, April the 12th, 1862. I'm sorry, I got a typo there. And you see the map over there on the side. This was a rather fanciful effort to force the Confederate troops out of Chattanooga, ideally without a fight, and have them fall back toward Atlanta. The raid recipients, there were, and here is the official description on the left, one of the 19 medal recipients from a group of 22 men who, by the direction of General Ormsby Mitchell, or Buell, it really was Mitchell, penetrated nearly 200 miles south into enemy territory, captured a railroad train at Big Shanty, Georgia, in an attempt to destroy bridges and track between Chattanooga and Atlanta. Again, the idea was to get a force behind Confederate lines, move that train northward, tear down telegraph wires, tear up track in the pre-Sherman days, tear up track, and burn bridges. There were several problems that intervened, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the technicalities of the whole episode, or we'd be here all night. I can't do that, but clearly some telegraph messages got through to other Confederates when the general was stolen. Also, there had been a lot of rain previously, and if you ever tried to burn a wet wooden bridge, it just doesn't work. And literally, the raid ran out of steam, as we all know, literally and figuratively, near Ringgold, Georgia. The participants who received the medal come from 3 Ohio infantry regiments. The 3rd of which there are 3 medal recipients there. The 21st produced 9 recipients, and the 33rd produced 7 recipients. And you're trying to figure the numbers out. We should add that there were 2 civilians, James Andrews, who the only thing he was ever captain of was the raid. And he was a smuggler and a would-be 007. There was James Campbell, who was also a civilian, not eligible for the medal. There were 2 other raiders who overslept, didn't get in the raid, and 2 who were in the raid listed here, or 2 others who were Shadrach and Wilson, who never received the medal. We've been working on that for the last several years. I was asked how to explain this to the powers that be in Washington, and my response was, well, the United States either got it right 19 times and wrong twice, or right 2 times and wrong 19. You tell me. But 19 medals, they were not all done at the same time. Here's one of our exhibitions which talk about those who were executed as spies because they were in civilian clothes behind enemy lines doing the work of the Union Army. There were those who were imprisoned, some were exchanged, some were escaped, and some served out a long sentence there at places like Andersonville. We want to focus for a minute on Jacob Parrott. Jacob Parrott was an interesting individual. Obviously from the 33rd Ohio Infantry Regiment. He volunteered. After the raid, of course, he was imprisoned. After the raid, when he was freed, they said, in essence, you've served your country well, you can go home. And Parrott, like the rest of the individuals in the raid, said, where's my unit? We're going back to serve in our unit. And he, of course, raised up through the officer ranks that way. He was invited along with 3 others, 3 of the other raiders, to go to Washington because Lincoln said, I want to meet these brave men. So 4 of them went, and they went and met Lincoln. Some people say, well, Lincoln gave them the first medals. Lincoln didn't award them. Secretary of War Stanton did. They were awarded on March the 25th, 1863. That date, March the 25th, is still celebrated as National Medal of Honor Day. You will see us in the National Cemetery decorating graves with Medal of Honor flags, and you will see people throughout the nation and all living recipients gather on that day. The image on the left is a late war image of Jacob Parrott after he had become an officer. Here is our example of Jacob Parrott as a teenager trying to pry up rails as part of the Andrews raid. Now, our theory on why Jacob Parrott received the medal, literally the very first medal, is the fact that he was the youngest. The Confederates tied him to a rock and beat him viciously, trying to get information out of him. They were unsuccessful, and because of that, we believe, based on a little evidence or a little suggestion, that in honor of that, the other 3 comrades with him pushed him to the forefront to Stanton for him to receive the first medal. Of course, most of the medals that were awarded here for actions in the Chickamauga, Chattanooga campaign come from the actual battlefields. And of course, that map is familiar to you in terms of covering the area of the campaign and a little more, perhaps. At the Battle of Chickamauga, September 18th, 19th, and 20th in 1863, just a few miles down the road where the park is beautifully preserved, and I appreciate everybody's effort through the Park Service and superintendent's effort. my ancestors fought there. And so I especially enjoy going over the battlefield periodically. There were 9 recipients who received the recipients of the Medal of Honor. William Carson of the 15th U.S. Infantry, Orville Chamberlain, 74th Indiana, Clinton Silly of the 2nd Minnesota, George Myers, 101st Ohio, Horace Porter of the Ordnance Department serving as an aide-de-camp, Axel Reed, 2nd Minnesota, William Ritchie, 15th Ohio Cavalry, Anthony Taylor, 15th Pennsylvania Cavalry, and William Whitney, 11th Michigan Infantry. They all have fascinating stories. In fact, I've told maybe a few of you that I see fairly often. I was asked a few months ago if, since I was the quote history guy and museum person, if I read historical fiction. After an awkward silence, I said, "No, ma'am, I never touched the stuff." And she wanted to know why. And I said, "You read and explore the amazing stories of what these and other individuals did, and they beat anything, hands down, that people make up. We say that they are ordinary individuals doing extraordinary things under extreme circumstances, and we'll pick out one for you, and that's William J. Carson. Carson was in a regular unit rather than those raised by the states and tendered to the national government to suppress the rebellion, as they like to say. On September the 19th, Carson, this is a post-war image on the left. Obviously, in our facility, you walk into the scene with Carson. He's a bugler. That strikes some people as odd in that the Medal of Honor recipient could be a bugler. Well, actually, there are 3 musicians in the Chickamauga, Chattanooga campaign that received the Medal of Honor. When the federal line started to give way, and he was in the 14th Corps, he went over to the 18th U.S. They were dissolving. He grabbed the color bearer and he said, "Let's rally the unit." He played to the colors, and he got enough of the unit to coalesce to be a force to help others stop the rebel onslaught. Then he went over to the 2nd Ohio Infantry, did the same thing. And the side benefit, which I don't guess anybody realized at the time, was there was enough bugle blowing that the Confederates stopped for a minute, confused, thinking the Federals were being reinforced. That delayed the attack. He received the Medal of Honor for bugling and getting the units to stand. Of course, everybody knows the story. After the fight at Chickamauga, the Federal Army retreated into Chattanooga. It was very slowly, with the emphasis on slowly, invested by Braxton Bragg. And there was the status quo for a couple of months until first Grant, and then Sherman with some of his troops from Mississippi, and then other troops from the Army of the Potomac came down to lift the siege. One of the first things to do in lifting the siege was at Brown's Ferry. You had to get food into the Federal Army. They literally were starving. And so at Brown's Ferry, there was an engagement to help start to be able to establish the Cracker Line. Then that was followed by Wauhatchie a day or two later, in which Confederates attacked some of the reinforcing troops that were moving into that particular area in Lookout Valley. During that nighttime engagement, Moses Veal established or distinguished himself. He was moving in the dark. His horse was shot out from under him. He was hit by 4 enemy bullets. He was still out there exhorting his men with coolness, as the citation says, coolness, zeal, judgment and courage. He was a captain in the 109th Pennsylvania Infantry. He received the Medal of Honor for his action. Of course, that is a post-war photograph. And in dealing it with one of our youth and family development centers, we have at several of these locations, I should have said at Chickamauga, by Lee and Gordon's Mill, you will see wayside exhibits, part of our Medal of Honor trail that we're slowly building, to the 9 at Chickamauga. In front of the Patton Youth and Family Development Center, there is a wayside exhibit on Mosesville, and I came dressed as Mosesville and paid a visit to the children's classes this summer. They were fascinated and summarily confused until I showed them my picture. My picture is Mosesville on the wayside exhibit. Then, of course, afterwards is the Battle Above the Clouds, rather fancifully named, as we all know, by one of the commander, one of the federal units. The Battle of Lookout Mountain, November the 24th, 1863. There were 4 individuals who received the Medal of Honor for their service in that engagement, and they all 4 from one regiment. There's Henry Barnum, the colonel, Peter Capisser, John Kiggins, Norman F. Potter, and you see the Army, an original version of the Army's medal there with them. But we want to focus a little bit on John Kiggins. We usually associate the concept of friendly fire with modern wars. It is as ancient as bow and arrows. And certainly this was the case in the engagement of Lookout Mountain. The 149th New York Infantry was nothing if not zealous. In fact, a little too zealous, we might say, because they got out in front of the main body of the Federals going to battle in the engagement at Lookout Mountain. And so the Federal artillery, several batteries looked up and said, there's a line of men in front of the main body of the Federal attack force. So they must be Confederates, so let her rip, boys, and they did. And the 149th New York took an artillery pounding from the rear. So what Kiggins did is he jumped up with the colors, got up on a stump, and was waving them back and forth to stop the friendly fire from the Federal artillery batteries. The good news is that it worked. The bad news is that it worked too well for Henry Kiggins because he made himself a dandy target for Confederate small arms fire from Lookout Mountain. And as I like to tell our students, particularly the younger ones, by the time of the end of the engagement, Sergeant Kiggins had an air-conditioned coat. There were 8 holes in the coat. How he didn't take a bullet, I don't know, but he liked to joke after the war that a Confederate sharpshooter, in addition to the 8 bullets, had also given him a new part because it went in his the back of his hat, creased a part in his hair, and went out the front. Because of this effort, and again, you see John Kiggins post-war, the Medal of Honor is the one on the right. The one on the left is a GAR membership badge, which looks suspiciously like a Medal of Honor. There was a problem with that. That's why there was some redesign. Over here, we have Kiggins getting up on the stump with his flag. And literally, you can virtually look him in the face. I will mention very quickly, these are not department store mannequins. These are art pieces. We were able to determine basically the size of these individuals, even in the Civil War. We knew the color of the hair, we knew the color of the eyes, we knew the weight, the general complexion, and we had an art house in Brooklyn, New York, get live models and pose to be covered with plaster. In this case, John's got the flag. And so somebody John's size is plastered in position. The plaster's cut off, a mold is made, Tiggins is poured, and then a face is sculpted by a local sculptor on Signal Mountain based on photographs. So by the time, before we ever got to put any clothing or equipment on these individuals, there were, well, let's just say several $1,000s each before any of them were clothed, so that they could be as realistic as possible. And of course, then there's the Battle of Missionary Ridge, the cataclysmic conclusion for our ultimate battle that decided the fate of Chattanooga. There's a lot of names up there, folks. There's 17 to be exact. And they're from all over the place. George Banks, 15th Indiana. James Bell, 11th Ohio. Henry V. Boynton, you know Boynton from the park, and his role in preserving and establishing the park. 35th Ohio. Charles Browse, 100th Indiana. Robert Brown, 15th Ohio. Freeman Davis, 80th Ohio. George Green, 11th Ohio. Thomas Graham, 15th Indiana. Hiram Howard, 11th Ohio. Reuel Johnson, 100th Indiana. Simeon Jocelyn, 13th Illinois. Over on the final side here, Leverett Kelly, 36th Illinois. John S. Kuntz, musician, drummer, 37th Ohio. Arthur MacArthur, 24th Wisconsin. William Smith, principal musician, 37th. There are two in the 37th. They're the musicians. John Toffee, 33rd New Jersey, and James Walker, 31st Ohio. At this point, we have adjacent to parkland on the adjacent to Bragg Reservation on Missionary Ridge, we have 10 of the 17 covered. We're looking for additional land to cover the remainder. But let's talk about Arthur MacArthur, who's my personal favorite. And I sometimes channel one of his companions in the 24th. Arthur MacArthur was the adjutant of the 24th Wisconsin Infantry. He seized the colors of his regiment when the color bearer went down, picked them up, motioned and yelled, "Onward, Wisconsin, take the line." And the 24th Wisconsin scrambled, crawled, dodged for some say up to 2 hours. That's what the report says. That's a long time if that's accurate. And he took a round, went down, got up with the colors, went on, took another round, didn't stop him till he finally was able to take the colors of the 24th, plant them on the Confederate works within sight of Bragg's headquarters. That was the beginning of the end for the Confederate forces on Missionary Ridge. Of course, there were others, as you saw, 17, who were doing similar things. Some things that are interesting about him. Arthur MacArthur is the father of Douglas MacArthur. Yes, that Douglas MacArthur, who also received the Medal of Honor in World War II. One of two father and son teams. He was wounded twice, as we've mentioned, at Missionary Ridge, but he was wounded twice at Kennesaw Mountain and kept going on. And at Franklin, he was shot in the thigh, shot in the shoulder, run through with a Confederate sword, and his horse was shot out from under him, and he still refused to leave the field while there was a danger of Hood's army attacking. He made the Army his career and retired as a lieutenant general. Now, to quote from the late, great Yogi Berra, the manager of the Yankees, when he said, "This is deja vu all over again." You know the last major posting of Arthur MacArthur? What it was? I heard it. He was Governor General of the Philippines. That's one of those do-do-do-do moments, because his father became famous there too. When he retired, story most people don't know, here he is in his Civil War uniform. Here he is later in his Army service. Here he is in our recreated version at what we call the Heart of Valor. He's taking the flag up Missionary Ridge, and guess what's on the floor around him? 6 character traits. He had been asked, he was ill, he was asked to speak at a reunion of his 24th, which was known as the Milwaukee Regiment in Milwaukee. He got up at a podium, this flag was behind him. He started to say, "I'm grateful for the invitation to speak." And he collapsed of a massive heart attack and died right there on the stage. Once they had determined there's no other aid that they could render to him, you know what they did? They took this flag down off the wall and they rolled MacArthur in it and took him to the undertaker. He was forever associated, strangely, with that flag. Also, there's Battle Ringgold Gap. November 27th, 1863. I think that's an Alfred Wald sketch. Philip Gottell, 149th Indiana New York Regiment. Capture a flag and battery guide on. You notice how short the citations are from most people in the Civil War? They get to be pages later on. This is the 5th medal received by a member of the 149th New York in the Chickamauga Chattanooga campaign. There's also one that was issued at Peachtree Creek. I'm chasing that one. If I get more information, I'll update you at some time. But that is Philip. Then there's the hospitals. Dr. Mary Walker, first and only female recipient, rescinded during the Great Purge because she was a civilian. She was not in the military. Of course, women couldn't be in the military. It was restored by President Jimmy Carter in 1977. We had it on loan to us for about 4 months. That is Mary wearing her medal on the left. This is Mary in the hospital scene that we've recreated. Anthony Hodges up there, you know his experience with the medical history of the Civil War, was a key person developing that great facility. I'm not going to read it, don't worry. But this is the citation about Mary Walker. Service at Bull Run, service in the Chickamauga, Chattanooga campaign, taken prisoner in North Georgia for spying, and yes, she did. She got less than 3 square meals in Castle Thunder in Richmond, so she was exchanged for a surgeon. She was recommended by Thomas and Sherman, endorsed by President Andrew Johnson, who executed it on a day that we would later know as Memorial Day, or Veterans Day, 11th November. Now that is Chattanooga, and I want to do some real fast things here, I know in the interest of time, but there's some other things we have as you take a tour of our facility. So I'm going to throw a few of these out here. A few Tennessee recipients. George Jordan, the only Buffalo soldier from Tennessee, born in Williamson County near the community of Triune. Jordan joined the Union Army after the Civil War. His family was likely enslaved. We cannot verify one way or the other. We're researching. He was nominated twice for the Medal of Honor, received it once for fighting Indians in the Southwest. And here he is in our view. In our exhibit, he is riding hard against the Apaches. And the second most asked question in our facility, beside where's the bathroom, that's always the top question in any museum or cultural center. Where's the bathroom? Is the horse real? Yes, he is. We had nothing to do with his demise, but we benefited from his demise as I won't even go with the amount, but we're all in when it comes to realism. So he's taxidermied. I'll tell you the story of George Jordan very quickly. Well, George Jordan was in the 9th Cavalry, Company K. The 9th and 10th were black soldiers, black regiments assigned to chase Indians in what's now Arizona, New Mexico, the Southwest Desert. There were 2 white regiments formed at the same time. They were sent north to do the same thing, chase various Indian tribes up there. Now, there are several discussions, or there are several, quote, stories on why the 9th and 10th were named Buffalo Soldiers. Our research indicates to us it is the result of a government failure. I know no one's ever seen any of that, any government failure. And what do I mean by that? When it came time for winter issue, the quartermaster officer in Washington said the 7th and the 8th, which were the white regiments up north, were sent overcoats, or at least what was left of the 7th after Custer. But anyway, gloves, etc. Because it's in the north. They deal with mountains that get cold. They sent these units nothing because someone reasoned, I use that in quotation marks, that everybody knows the desert is hot. So why would anybody need winter clothes? Says somebody who's obviously never been to one. And so the 9th and the 10th were forced to fend for themselves. They killed buffalo, which were fairly plentiful at that time, ate the meat, and used the hides to make caps, gloves, and coats. So to the Apache whom they fought, these were the soldiers who dressed like buffalo. And so that is the origin, we believe, of the term buffalo soldiers. That is accurate and makes sense. But George is a pretty impressive fellow. We also talk about in World War I, Alvin York, the most decorated soldier in America in World War I. There were 6 Tennesseans, 5 of which were charging machine gun nests. He was a pacifist. You know the story. He eventually was convinced that it was okay to defend your country and to save your countrymen. So on one particular day on the Hindenburg Line in October of 1918, the Germans made the mistake of wounding a number of his men. He told them, in essence, this is my Reader's Digest version, stay here. I think I can work my way around them. He did. He fired his Model 1917 rifle till he ran out of ammunition. At that point, killing 20 Germans. Then the Germans, he made the Germans mad. They jumped out of a section of the works and ran down the slope toward him. Folks, there's dumb and there's stupid, and you can fix a lot of things, but you can't fix stupid. That was the last thing the Germans ever did. He whipped out his .45 and he killed all 8 of them on the run. Then, for good measure, he captured 132 Germans. Let's do the math. 1 Tennessean, 1 day, 160 Germans out of combat. About right. So that's him wearing the medal. This is us showing when he whipped out the .45. His daughter loved it. She came at the opening, and she loved it. Then we talk about Charles Coolidge. Everybody knows about Mr. Coolidge. Historic images on the left and right. This image here in the middle was Mr. Coolidge at 99, attending the opening of the facility that was named for him. And we all know that he passed this last April. 36th Infantry Division. I'm not going to read that one, but you know what he did 27 men, most of whom had never been into combat, held off 100 Germans back by 2 tanks for 4.5 days. Then there's Desmond Doss. And you can say, well, he wasn't really a Tennessean. Well, he lived in the greater Chattanooga area with a farm on Lookout Mountain for some time, and was very active in the in Veterans Affairs and Community Affairs here. You see on the left, Truman presenting him the medal. On the right, you see our version of Hacksaw Ridge with Desmond on top of it. Everybody knows the movie Hacksaw Ridge. And I'll tell you a couple of things. One for fun. Truman said this, he did not say it to Doss, but upon awarding the Medal of Honor to another World War II soldier, he told the soldier, he said, I would rather be awarded the Medal of Honor than be President of the United States, because there's more honor to it. That's Truman. Also, the official tally of Desmond Doss's number of men that he saved off the ridge is 75. The federal government wanted it to be 100. Doss wanted it to be 50. Research that has been done by several people, of which we are aware, says 50 is wrong, 75 is wrong, 100 is wrong, 150 is wrong, 200 is wrong. The number is more like 232, including 5 Japanese. And what's amazing, at the beginning of the war, he was a shipbuilder in a protected industry. He didn't have to go. He's the first Medal of Honor conscientious objector. And there's that one, yes. Then we have Paul Huff Parkway. Everybody knows that up near Cleveland. And several images of Paul. I did something I've not done in 38 years of museum work. And the committee wanted Paul Huff as the first paratrooper to receive the Medal of Honor. There's only one way you can make an entrance, and that's parachute in. And so that is Huff. Mrs. Huff, who generally has more sense at 97 than I do. She's amazing. She and her 3 children were here for the opening. The one in the image in the middle intrigues me, because Huff was a World War II recipient, left the military for a while, then went into ROTC, then went back in the military. This is Paul Huff, this middle, as Command Sergeant Major of the 101st Airborne in Vietnam in 1967. Just saying. Amazing individuals we're talking about. That's his citation. Ray Duke from Korea. He was wounded multiple times, captured by the communists, and starved to death because he would not reveal secrets. Mitchell Stout from Loudon. He's the first air artillery defenseman to receive the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. The bunker which we recreated, one of the Viet Cong rolled a hand grenade in. He picked it up, ran out to save his comrades. He died. 8 of his comrades survived. That's his citation. Then Kyle Carpenter. All right, I'm unabashedly giving a 10-second commercial. Get your tickets to the Medal of Honor Celebration of Valor if you hadn't gotten them already. He's speaking. It's next Tuesday. As of this morning, we had 725 confirmed for the convention center. His is an amazing story. Jumped between a grenade and his friend. Broke most of the bones in his body. Lost an eye. Lost a part of a jaw. He coded 4 times. He had 62 operations and stayed in Walter Reed 3 years. You're going to hear an amazing story of that individual. And that's it. We invite you to become a part of and to visit the Medal of Honor Heritage Center. Our goal, honor the past, inspire the future. Thank you very much. I'm gonna get a drink. If anybody, I think maybe we have 5 or 10 minutes for questions.
Yes, we do have time for a few questions. It's kind of hard to see So if you would just kind of stand up and just shout your question out.
Anybody, don't be bashful. You may be standing, I can't see you.
I know, it's-
Okay. Yes. Yes, good question, and the answer is in the affirmative. Those are available primarily through the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's website. Congressional Medal of Honor Society, they have them. They also have them in their education program books that we have and that we use. They have segments, and we have brief segments of some of them in our what we call character kiosk, when you stop to learn what sacrifice really means and have a Medal of Honor recipient tell you in 2 or 3 minutes what that means. But the best single place is the Congressional Medal of Honor Society website. There were 3,508 Medal of Honor recipients, starting with the Civil War. The number of medals and the number of recipients don't match because 19 received it twice. Other questions?
This one down here. Yep. Right there.
I understand that Paul Huff was also asked by President Eisenhower to
You talking about the unknown soldier? Yes. We have documentation that we ran across. President Eisenhower was dedicating the tomb of the unknown soldier from World War II at Arlington. And the unknown soldiers have been officially awarded, representative of all heroes, the Medal of Honor. There is a picture of Ike standing at the podium, and the grave is here. And you can see they've just finished it with the stone and then the dirt. And there's an individual standing about 5 paces over and 6 or 8 paces to the rear of Ike, holding the medal. And I saw that, and the closer we got with magnification, this individual was short, this individual was wiry, and he had a little black mustache right here. And I said, I'll be doggone, it's Paul Huff. And we verified that Paul Huff was chosen by his compatriots to represent the Medal of Honor and to be the Medal of Honor bearer for the unknown soldier for that ceremony at Arlington. So it's just, it's amazing where you find these people and what they continue to do. And you know who were best friends? Who the best friend of Paul Huff was? No, they knew one another because Medal of Honor recipients have annual reunions, but it was Alvin York. They used to go shooting together after the war. And there's some amazing pictures of, here's this little guy with a Tommy gun, Thompson submachine gun, and here is this tall guy who got larger and rounder as he got older, firing an Enfield rifle. And that's York. And they were involved in one another's, I know it was Paul Huff who presented the flag to Mrs. York at the burial ceremony of Alvin York. And there are lots and lots of interconnections there. Any more?
I was surprised to see the statue of Wesley Ross. His Medal of Honor ribbon is upside down.
Yes. Yes, well, that's interesting, but actually, at least on that uniform, he wore it upside down. Someone came in one day and had a keen eye and noticed it and said, Doss's ribbon, not the ribbon around the neck, but the service ribbon on the uniform, and he said, this is upside down, so you need to change it. And I said, you're right, but you're wrong. And he said, what? And I said, regulation-wise, you're absolutely right. It's on upside down. And I said, he said, well, then why am I wrong? And I said, if that's the way Desmond wore it, that's the way we're exhibiting it. We're not changing a single thing about how he wore his uniform. Even if you got the decoration on upside down, that's historic. So,
I think there was one more
yes, one more.
over there toward the end of on the other side.
Yes. Well, the most obvious one is the closest to home. Charles Coolidge Jr. graduated from the Air Force Academy and retired many years later as a lieutenant general. But there are others. Medal of Honor recipients also receive a small stipend, and I emphasize small. The government ought to be ashamed of itself in terms of what the stipend is. But it was just made available just within the last 24 months to widows of recipients, because until then, the widow got nothing. And that's a travesty in my opinion. But that has changed. But there's an effort now to build a multi-million-dollar monument in Washington, D.C. to the Medal of Honor and its recipients. So I hope it is successful. We've endorsed the effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keith. I think they made an excellent choice when they brought you on to create this museum. I'm totally fascinated, and we'll be out in the lobby if you have any last questions for Mr. Hardison or questions about National Park Partners. And as Greg mentioned, we have on October 4th another program here at the IMAX, or if you're joining us on Zoom, that's an option as well, about the Julius Rosenwald and the Julius Rosenwald Schools National Historical Park that's being created as we speak. Just a fascinating story. We'll have the president of that campaign, Dorothy Cantor, here to speak about that. And then on November 15th, we'll have Amy Costine with the MTSU Historic Preservation Department. She's done extensive research about the transportation methods, rivers, roads, and rails for the Cherokee removal. And she's going to talk about some of the research she's done. So that'll be a kind of our indigenous culture and history theme for that topic. So please join us. Make sure you grab a card on the way out that has those dates and ways to register on it. Thank you again, Greg, for your sponsorship for this 16th year kickoff. And thank you all so much for coming. Safe travels home.